is launching the new Canada's Groceries and Essentials benefit. This will deliver hundreds of dollars more into the bank accounts of more than 12 million Canadians. Starting this year, we're taking the existing GST credit amount and raising it by 25% for 5 years. And in addition, we're providing a one-time payment equivalent to 50% of the GST credit this year.
There you have it, guys. More subsidizing consumption, guys. We saw this in COVID. But at least in COVID, nobody was allowed to go outside, so the government kind of had to do it. Right now, instead of fixing problems, the government's just putting Band-Aids on top of them. Guys, Mark Carney just announced $3 billion to help Canadians afford expensive food. The government says this is about helping families put food on the table, and it says this is about easing the affordability crunch. They also say this is about supporting low-income families. But when you actually look at what this policy does, it's not affordability, it's consumption subsidy. And that does not fix why food is expensive in the first place. All it does is give you more money to buy expensive food. And if Carney actually cared about making food affordable, he'd support farmers and supply chains. Instead, he's giving money to people who are paying inflated prices for food to continue to pay inflated prices for food. So he's creating a flywheel for expensive food. Guys, this is not crisis response. This is election positioning. And let me give you the wider context of this story. Carney is announcing these $30 billion to boost to the GST credit, which, you know, he's renaming it the Canada Groceries Essential Benefit to make it sound nicer and sweeter, right? But a family of four will receive essentially close to $1,900 this year and about $1,400 per year for the next 4 years. A single person will get up to $950 this year and about $700 per year for the next 4 years. And this program essentially takes effect in July. The government says this will help 12 million Canadians dealing with rising food costs, right? But what we've actually been seeing is the food bank usage is up 5.2% in 2025. And so that's 1 in 4 Canadians experience food insecurity. And food inflation has accelerated 4.7% in November, guys. This is the highest since December in 2023. And so you think, we know Canada we have our great farmers in the West. We have our own dairy. We have our own meat. We have everything that we need. So why is food getting more expensive? It's not like we have to import all of our food. We import exotic foods, right? We import foods that are maybe out of season right now that we can get from down south. That's the type of stuff that we import. Things like milk, cheese, eggs, beef, pork, chicken, none of that should be inflated, really. So there is a real crisis going on. No doubt about it. The question is, does this policy actually solve it? And the answer is blatantly no. Because this policy only subsidizes consumption. It does not fix the production issue. I'm just going to read the article real quick just to give you guys a little rundown. It says, Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiled a multi-billion-dollar boost to GST credit Monday as part of a package measure aimed at easing the affordability crunch facing families. The government will provide those eligible for the credit with a one-time top-up payment and will also increase the credit by 25%. This boost will remain in effect for 5 years, Mr. Carney said. The GST credit is paid to low or moderate income families to offset the costs of paying the tax. We know that in times like these, we have to look out for ourselves and we have to take care of each other. Mr. Carney said that starts with everyone being able to put good food on the table. Wow. Thanks, buddy. Thanks. Let's, because that, handing out money to people is really the way that you grow a society in a healthy way, right? This is just a Band-Aid solution that they're forcing on everybody, guys. The government said the GST credit, which is being renamed the Canada Groceries and Essentials Benefit, will help as many as 12 million Canadians. The changes will be implemented in July, according to figures provided by the government. The increase means a family of four could receive. Okay, we saw all of that. Mr. Carney told reporters the cost of the increased benefit will be around $3 billion in the first year and upward of $1 billion annually for the subsequent years. He said the decision to increase the credit reflects the fact that the cost of groceries and other items eat up a larger share of the budget for lower income Canadians, placing a higher tax burden on them. The rise in food prices means that a lot of Canadians need more support right now. So we have this great graph here showing how inflated food prices have gotten. So this bottom line here is the target CPI. So this is where we want to be, and this is where everything else is, right? And beef obviously having grown the most. So everything is just basically a disaster right now. There is nothing that's on par with where the CPI is. This really tells you a lot. And just to go down here, this is the increase in the visits to food banks in Canada over the years, right? So I guess 2020 was COVID, so they don't have data for that. But it has literally gotten worse year over year, every year since COVID. And I mean drastically worse. And, what's this really tell us about what's going on in Canada right now? Is this GST credit really supposed to be the big thing that saves Canadians putting food on the tables? Because Canadian farmers are struggling too, but Carney doesn't give money to them. He's giving money to us, the consumers, right, of the goods, right? And let's start with this, with the part of the story that's really missing from this entire article, right? Canadian farmers are barely profitable right now. And from Credit Canada projects that prairie margins for wheat canola rotation will hover just above $50 per acre in 2025 and 2026. That's half the 5-year average of $100 an acre. And some farmers saw negative margins in 2024 and 2025. That means they lost money growing food, guys. And the net farm income is forecast to drop 15% in 2025 to $19.1 billion, down from the record $24 billion in 2023. Guys, what this really means to me is that we have the government is they're putting an emphasis on city people, right? The urban population, right? How is the urban population dealing with these things right now? Why? Because the farmers are somewhere way out west. There's not a lot of them. It doesn't matter that they make food less expensive for people living in cities. That doesn't matter. Matters is people are hurting right now, and let's give them a way of subsidizing their food. Let's make their food prices cheaper somehow in whatever way. But the reason why this is happening is because the input costs of farming have exploded. Farmers have seen inflation of 40 to 50% since 2020. And one example from Manitoba is tractor tracks that cost $10,500 in 2020 now cost $21,000. That's literally double. Fertilizer, fuel, equipment, parts, all of it has gone up massively, right? So meanwhile, crops have been falling since the 2022 peak. So farmers are paying more to produce and getting less for what they grow, right? And so this is how things become unaffordable. And so Farm Credit Canada economists said it plainly. There's absent tariffs. The profitability was already looking tight, and considering the impact of tariffs makes the outlook even more challenging. So farmers are being hit extremely hard. That is why food is expensive. But let's not help them. Let's not make the input costs cheaper. Let's not make fuel cheaper. Let's take out the carbon credits and all of those carbon taxes that are making everything expensive for everybody anyways. Support those farmers, reduce all of these inputs, help them produce more food more efficiently and cheaply. Build the supply side so food costs less at the source, right? That's not what these guys are doing at all, right? Carney's just giving money to the urban population, right? He's giving $33 billion to consumers. not farmers, not to reduce input costs. There's no policy changes for anything carbon related or fuel related. Nothing. There's no strengthening of supply chains. It's all to consumers, and they can afford. It's all to consumers, so they can afford the expensive food that farmers are barely profitable producing. This is backwards. Like, this whole policy from here is just backwards. It's backward thinking. Unless you understand what the motivations of doing something like this would be. The other thing is that the grocery stores are actually increasing their margins, right? So this subsidy essentially will help them, not families, right? And so there's an actual statistic. So a 2023 Competition Bureau study found that grocery store profit margins have increased since 2017. So just so you guys, so I can reiterate this, farmers are losing money and grocery stores are increasing margins. In the recent study, compared farmer markets to grocery stores over 5 years, and what do they find? They found that farmers markets had flat or declining margins. Grocery stores saw rising margins despite facing similar input costs. So the inflation Canadians are paying at the checkout isn't going to farmers. It's being captured by the grocery chains. Guys, it's all going to corporate. It's not going to the farmer. So what's going to happen when you give an extra $1,400 to all these grocery chains? You're not going to be supporting the farmers. You're not going to be supporting input costs. You're just giving it more to corporate, right? We're flatlining the crisis that this government has created, that the Liberals have quite literally created. And so if you don't fix the underlying system, grocery stores just capture more of these subsidies. They know consumers have more money. Prices might even increase. So this is what happened. This is quite literally what happened with student loans. Tuitions rose to capture the subsidy. And this is what happened with housing subsidies as well. Prices rose to capture the subsidy as well. Why would food be any different, guys? If you give people more money for expensive food, you don't make food less expensive. But you don't address why grocery margins are high and why farmers are struggling. You're just subsidizing the retailers. You're forcing the imbalance to exist even more, man. This is an affordability policy. That's quite literally wealth transfer to grocery chains. And the government doesn't seem to care. I know everybody, it would just be irresponsible not to think that they don't know this. But the real thing is, this doesn't actually address the core cause. It subsidizes the inflation. So if a family of four is getting $1,400 a year, that's $117 a month. The average grocery bill for a family of four in Canada is between $1,200 and $1,500 per month. So this covers about 8 to 10% of grocery costs. Guys, this doesn't solve food insecurity, or does it just slightly reduce the squeeze while leaving the system broken in place, right? Here's what an economic nationalist perspective would really look like. You would ask yourself, why is food expensive? And you'd find out what the farmers' input costs are, why they're up 40 to 50% since 2020. Supply chains are fragile and inefficient. Processing capacity is limited. Regulatory costs get passed to consumers, and grocery chains are increasing margins. And so you'd go and you don't want to fix those things, right? You'd invest those $3 billion, if that's your budget, you would invest that money in reducing farmers' input costs, the fuel, the fertilizers, the carbon tax relief, building domestic processing capacity as well, strengthening those supply chains, cutting regulations that add costs without improving safety, enforcing competition in grocery store retail. Guys, that's supply side reform. And it actually makes food cheaper by making production stronger. Instead, what Carney is doing is he's saying we're doing a demand side subsidy for consumers. He's giving money to buy expensive food. That doesn't reduce costs. It just increases the amount of money that's chasing the same amount of supply. And when you increase demand without increasing supply, you just get more inflation. And we're just running this flywheel of inflation. But where things actually get malicious, the way I see it, is this is being implemented for July, which is, it just coincides with the election positioning. This is in crisis response, guys. July is 6 months away. The NDP has already called this out immediately. Their interim leader, Don Davies, he says Canadians need action now, not promises that won't begin for months. And honestly, he's right. I don't even like the NDP, but he's right. If the food bank usage is up 5.2% and 1 in 4 Canadians are food insecure, guys, why is the government waiting until July? But here's the reason. Because this needs to pass through Parliament. The Liberals have a minority government. They need opposition support. The Conservatives are forced to support it because they would look, you'd look cruel not to support this, right? And the NDP will vote for it without complaining because, again, you need to vote for it. But it's too slow. And the timing is just perfect for this next election cycle, guys. Payments arrive in July 2026. Then continue for another 4 years, right? Conveniently covering that entire period through the next election, right? This isn't crisis response. Crisis response is immediate. This is political positioning, guys, that uses affordability as cover. And here's the big giveaway. Carney is setting aside $500 million from the Strategic Response Fund to help businesses manage supply chain disruptions. That's not to fix the disruptions. It's to help businesses manage without passing costs to consumers, guys. And so if you compare that to the $3 billion for consumer subsidies, if the problem is supply chains, why not invest $3 billion in actually fixing them? Why not support farmers directly so they can produce food more cheaply, right? Because that's long-term structural reform. And Carney needs something he can announce now that arrives before the next election. So he's chosen short-term subsidy over a long-term solution. And what this really means for Canadians, us as a whole, really, guys, if you're a farmer and you're watching the government give billions of dollars away to consumers while you're barely breaking even on $50 an acre, those are your margins. Your input costs have doubled. Your crop prices have fallen. And the government's response is to help people afford the expensive food you're losing money to produce. That doesn't help you stay in business. If you're a low-income Canadian with $117 per month, it might help a little, but it doesn't solve the problem. Food's still going to be expensive. What it actually seems like they might be forcing, if you were to really be think maliciously, it could almost be framed as if they're trying to force farmers out of business. Grocery stores are still increasing their margins too. And in 6 months, when the payment arrives, nothing about the system will have changed. If you care about Canadian food security, guys, it should be terrifying. It's just a terrifying prospect. Because we're not building domestic production capacity here. We're not making Canadian farming more viable. We're not strengthening those supply chains either. We're just subsidizing the current broken system up to an election cycle. And that makes Canada more dependent on imports and more vulnerable on supply shocks. Thanks for watching, guys. That's all I have for today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave some comments in the comment section below. Really curious to hear what you guys think about this. Stay informed, stay curious, and God bless Canada.
This is Canada. Maple syrup and like Captain Say.